Assalamu alaikum, everyone. A hearty welcome to the first day of India Zakat Talks, a global online conference brought to you by Association of Muslim Professionals, IndiaZakatcom, and Ummah1.com. My name is Naveed Ahmed. I volunteer with IndiaZakatcom and professionally I'm employed with IBM. I will be your host for the course of the next hour or so. Starting from today through the week, we will discuss zakat for economic empowerment of the Ummah. We have a panel of eminent speakers who have carved a niche for themselves and are striving for the empowerment of the community through various initiatives, IndiaZakatcom being one of them. I'd now like to call upon Zaim Mirza to delve deeper into the conference. Zaim is a member of the Management Council at India Zakat and is the founder of Ummah1.com. Zaim is joining us today from Canada. Over to you, Zaim.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Hi, Alhamdulillah, the weather is good today. It's quite sunny. You can actually see it from my window. Alhamdulillah, it's 10:40 in the morning. So we'll quickly delve into the conference. Thanks for the introduction, Brother Naveed. I'm actually nothing but a volunteer with India Zakat. And through Ummah One, we have certain efforts that we are trying to impact social organizations. Alhamdulillah. So moving forward, I'm so excited to be presenting what the entire focus of Zakat Talks is about. Follow up from our last year's conference, which was a much larger event spread over 2 days. This year, we decided to have about 5 days of amazing webinar series. Of course, it's virtual because we can have a global coverage. We spread it over 5 days and 2 hours each, to match the time of the target audience, where we're trying to bring scholars, Islamic scholars, especially thought leaders, technologists and organizations to help all of us understand zakat better, reform zakat management, and of course, empower the ummah. So starting today, 8 p.m. India time, and until 10 p.m. tonight, we will continue this for another 5 days, inshallah. So it's like power-packed 10 hours of amazing content. The topics that will range, inshallah, are how zakat can be the tool for economic empowerment of Muslims. What is the vision that we all have, the thought leaders, the social organizations, and how do we utilize the power of, the pillar of Islam, that is zakat, for our economic empowerment and nation building. We'll also cover topics from experts on how zakat can actually make people self-sustainable. We have different programs running on our different platforms. So we'll delve on that as well. And ultimately, the idea and the crux of the overall program in the conference is collective zakat management. We feel that collective zakat is actually one of the most important solutions for the overall growth of the community. And that's why, alhamdulillah, we have this fantastic array of Indian international zakat speakers, experts, scholars, leaders, tech and social organizations that will take you through the journey of zakat talks over the next 5 days, inshallah. So we declare the conference, alhamdulillah, open. But that said, if you move to the next slide, Brother Naveed, we have the organizers, alhamdulillah. So of course, without organizers, it would have been very difficult to take this effort forward. Alhamdulillah, we had lots and lots of people working behind the scenes. Mashallah, some organizations who've worked in the past with us as well have been contributing. And the team of very strong volunteers, alhamdulillah, have worked day and night to get this, alhamdulillah, conference on board. And here we are today. So starting with, of course, one of our organizers. Next slide, Brother Naveed, the Association of Muslim Professionals. Alhamdulillah, this is a name in Indian social circuit that actually doesn't need an introduction. But for those who are uninitiated, it's a fantastic organization. Alhamdulillah, we'll hear more about this into today and in the next coming days. It's founded by thorough Muslim professionals, and it's a registered non-profit organization in India and in some countries across the world as well. Of course, the goal is to strive towards the welfare of the community, of the society, and nation building as well. What I really like about the organization, AMP, is it's very, very well organized into national, international, city, and state teams. Relevant to this context of our conference today is the AMP Zakat Fund, which has been growing, alhamdulillah, since right from the start from 2013. It's scaled very well. I won't go into the numbers today because we have more detailed sessions, inshallah, in the upcoming days. But again, like I mentioned, the idea is collective zakat and utilization of those funds. So, I mean, if you are eager to learn more, if you're new to the conference, if you're new to the concept of AMP, please visit the website and you can actually get more information and engage. Next slide, Brother Navi. IndiaZakat actually has its own section. Alhamdulillah, Brother Amir is going to take us through that. But long story short, IndiaZakat is the first crowdfunding platform within India. And the primary goal, or the simplest way to explain this platform, alhamdulillah, is to connect zakat seekers and zakat givers on a unified platform. So, I mean, again, the idea is to have a very efficient socio-economic transformation in the most, automated way possible. So there's a larger or a longer session on IndiaZakat upcoming in a couple of more minutes. So I'll not get into details of that for now. Next slide. Ummah One is the organization that I represent. I'll take maybe a minute or so to explain what we do. So technically, I'm actually a digital marketing professional, and I have marketing technology as my base. What we do as Ummah One is we help other social organizations do their marketing and their fundraising activities in a more efficient manner. So a lot of times we've seen that organizations work, but they're not able to do what they are not skilled at. So if you look at the list of things that we do across organizations, it's creative designing, creating creative libraries, maintaining content, volunteer management, digital marketing, and social media. And we are very choosy in which organizations we choose. So we go hyper local, and we choose organizations that really need that kind of a leverage in the market. So think of it as a digital marketing agency as your partner. And if you need more information, you can visit ummah1.com. So next slide. Some of the organizations that we've engaged are, because I'm based in Canada, I work hyper local as well. These are some of the organizations that we work with. Of course, there are many more masjid, trusts, and social community organizations. So that said, alhamdulillah, I'm really looking forward to a fantastic 5 days ahead, especially the next 2 hours where we're starting with the understanding of zakat from the Quran and Sunnah. And wish you all the best for the conference, and welcome all the attendees and the panelists. Over to you, Brother Naveed.
Thanks, Zaim, for setting the context. Yeah, I would now like to call upon Amir Idrisi, the founder president of Association of Muslim Professionals. Amir is the guiding light behind the 14,000 plus strong member volunteer-driven organization called AMP, which has a bouquet of projects, namely the National Talent Search, AMpowerJobs.com, IndiaZakatcom, IndiaMentors.com. The list of projects under the umbrella of AMP are endless. Over to you, Amir bhai. Keep guiding us and tell us more about IndiaZakat and our future plans.
Thank you, Naveed bhai. Thank you so much, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you can hear me properly and I'm visible properly. Naveed
yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. So I would like to welcome and thanks each and every participant of today's conference in this session, and especially our guests who are participating from different countries, mashallah. So truly it has become a global conference, which is starting with a few wonderful speakers, alhamdulillah. So it's a wonderful day for us. It's a historical day for IndiaZakat especially. We are about to complete 2 years. It was April 2020 when we launched IndiaZakatcom. Precisely, it was the Chand Raat, or you can say that on the eve of the Ramzan in 2020, we launched IndiaZakat. So in that sense, we can say that we are celebrating the 2 years of IndiaZakat, mashallah, which has been very phenomenal, very remarkable, and very successful, alhamdulillah. So as Zaim bhai told all of you, that AMP is working since last 14 years, out of which we started this organization very small, very humble in 2007, And Alhamdulillah, today we see that AMP is a truly national organization which is present in more than 150 cities of India. Not only in India, but we are also present in at least 20 different countries. Our volunteers are there and working from 20 different countries. Officially, we are registered in US, UK, and Australia, and this will keep on increasing, Alhamdulillah. If you talk about projects, so we have few wonderful projects in the domain of employment assistance, mentorship, school development program, scholarship guidance, financial assistance, and so on and so forth, mashallah. We have wonderful network of NGOs connected with us. We have wonderful network of academicians, professors, and the teachers connected with us, mashallah. So together, we have tried to provide a single platform wherein from where each and every person from the community can contribute, from where each and every person from the community can get benefited. And Alhamdulillah, Allah has been very kind enough with all of us. Allah has given all his blessings, mashallah, that we have received such huge, wonderful success. Last two, if I have to talk about the last 2 to 3 years or 4 years, if I can say, these last 3 to 4 years have been very successful for AMP, mashallah. We have seen lots and lots of growth, and you can say that exponential growth in all our activities and project. At the time of pandemic, here in India, the lockdown and started in some March. I think it was 22nd March. Today is the date when the lockdown started in India, and March 2020, it was around 2020 April. Within a month, we launched the IndiaZakatcom. So it is so good to understand that international level, for example, a platform which is at par excellence with any as compared to any international platform, वो AMP ने और AMP की टीम ने सिर्फ 1 महीने में लॉन्च किया, माशाल्लाह. So I consider वो launch in itself is a big success. और उसके बाद within first month itself, mashallah, on India Zakat we raised more than 50 lakh rupees, apart from the funds which AMP used to collect during Ramzan every year. तो वो बड़ा growth रहा. People have shown lots of faith and trust in the concept, mashallah. When year 1 ended, we raised around 2 crore rupees. So in my opinion, for any startup, you can say, or for any न्यू प्लेटफॉर्म या किसी क्राउड फंडिंग प्लेटफॉर्म को इतना जबरदस्त सक्सेस आई थिंक नहीं मिला होगा इसके पहले. आई हैव स्टडीड एंड read lots of things about different crowdfunding platforms, but the kind of success which we received within in the first year itself, mashallah, it was phenomenal, alhamdulillah. First year when it was ended, we last time also we organized a 2-day conference which was like even bigger as compared to the current conference which we have planned. So it was just before the Ramzan last year as well. Now after 1 year, if we see about our achievements, so alhamdulillah, you will be glad to know that the second year we raised more than 6 crore rupees. So in totality, in last 23 months or so, on the platform we have raised more than 8 crore rupees for at least 3,000 different causes. And these donations have come from more than 26,000 plus donations, coming from more than 700 districts of India, 700 different cities, you can say that, in 20 different countries, mashallah. With this amount, we have helped more than around 15,000 people. Most of the beneficiaries, they fall under the category of education, livelihood, healthcare, or the relief activities, or orphan support program, mashallah. So in the first 2 years, you can say that the major focus by nature of the organization which is supporting it, or by the kind of people which are associated with the organization, is on education. And alhamdulillah, you'll be glad to know that we have helped more than around 2,000 students in last 2 years with the financial assistance for getting education, higher education, out of which there will be around 400 students who are into medical education, at least 300 students doing engineering, and at least 50 students who are into the prestigious institutions of India, mashallah, like IITs, IIMs, and national law universities, etc. So this is what the potential of collective mechanism is, that we must understand. It was almost impossible for individuals like me or Zaim bhai It was even impossible for organization like AMP, but when we all of us came together, this is the result which you can see on your screen, mashallah. So the entire conference, entire concept, entire efforts which we put in behind all these initiatives is to bring everybody on the single platform, is to bring the collective efforts, is to make our donations count, is to bring is to do some activities which are very strategic in nature and which can create immediate impact, because of which a zakat taker or a support taker today becomes the zakat giver or the support giver in future, inshallah. So this was the basic objective. Alhamdulillah, we are very happy that we are moving on the right direction, we are moving on the right path, alhamdulillah. So if you check about IndiaZakatcom, the best thing I think which people have liked is the genuineness of the causes which we have on our platform. So the causes which come on IndiaZakatcom for fundraising, we do 3 different level of verification for them. First of all, we do their KYC, which we call it as. We check their documents, we check their details, we try to find out different things about them from different sources. That is level number 1. Level number 2, we call the people, we call the referrals or somebody जिसका reference हम लोग उनसे लेते हैं, we call them. And the third one is the background verification. This makes this entire system very trustworthy, mashallah. Even we are very surprised to know that because of this, in last 2 years, हम खुद भी जो है ना इसके अंदर कोई गलत causes हम पता नहीं लगा पाए. Out of these around 3,000 causes which have got funded, सिर्फ 4 से 5 बार शायद ऐसा हुआ होगा. It's an internal number which I'm sharing it here. Only 4 to 5 causes have been found out of little fraudulent in nature, या जहां पर कुछ information की हम लोगों को ऐसे महसूस हुआ कि बराबर गड़बड़ है या बराबर नहीं है. तो मुझे लगता है कि this has given a wonderful reason for the donors to come on the platform and donate to these causes, mashallah. और हम इस पूरे प्रोसेस को, हमारी कोशिश है कि हम इसको और स्ट्रीमलाइन करें और ऑटोमेट करें और ह्यूमन इंडिपेंडेंट करें, है ना, ताकि ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों को सपोर्ट कर पाए, इंशाल्लाह. और ये फर्स्ट डे से माशाल्लाह वी आर वर्किंग ऑन दिस डायरेक्शन. दूसरी जो अहम बात मुझे लगती है वो ये है, बिकॉज ऑफ दिस प्लेटफॉर्म पीपल हैव गॉट द चॉइस टू डोनेट ऑन द काइंड ऑफ कॉजेज व्हिच दे वांट टू डोनेट, राइट. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ समबडी is interested only into healthcare, he can come and donate to healthcare causes. If somebody is interested for education, someone may be interested in livelihood, someone may be interested to assist orphans, and someone may be interested in assisting the women of the community. ये सारी चीजें we can achieve with this platform. Sometimes people are interested to donate to the causes from their own city or from their native places, they can do that. Sometimes people are interested to support somebody from the XYZ institute, they can do that. For example, if you're interested to donate to a cause or to a student who's studying in AMU or Jamia, for example, you can do that. So this provides you a wide variety of the choices. This has also brought in all this success, mashallah. दूसरी बात जो है मुझे समझ में आती है, जो वो ये है कि और इन्हीं चीजों को हम लोग जो है ना आगे भी बढ़ाना चाहते हैं. तो ये हमारा अचीवमेंट भी है और इसी को स्ट्रेंथन करना कहीं ना कहीं हमारे फ्यूचर प्लान्स में भी है. अगर तीसरी चीज जो मुझे लगती है वो ये है कि जो ये जो ट्रस्ट हमने बिल्ड किया है, वी विल ट्राई टू वर्क मोर ऑन दैट. वी वुड लाइक टू इन्वॉल्व मोर उलेमा, शरिया स्कॉलर्स, financial scholars, legal experts into the team. Recently, we have formed a new team called as Legal Experts and Financial Experts team. जिसके अंदर we have included people from RBI, people from the Indian Police Services, legal people with the legal expertise, cyber expertise. People, we have taken 2 people from Indian Revenue Services. They are former employees, mashallah. So we are trying to have these kind of people with us, those who can provide us right kind of guidance, support and mentoring, those who can help us with the nitty-gritty of these all these financial matters, mashallah. तो ये एक बड़ा जो है ना फर्क पड़ रहा है, जो मुझे लगता है कि एक बड़ा पॉजिटिव साइन है. दूसरी एक चीज जो हम लोगों को लग रही है, आमतौर पर ज़कात के बारे में बोला जाता है कि ज़कात के इमीडिएट हकदार जो हैं वो हमारे करीब तरीन लोग हैं, है ना, हमारे रिलेटिव्स, हमारे नेबर्स, हमारे लोकल एरिया के नेबरहुड के रहने वाले लोग. तो व्हाट मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि दिस प्लेटफॉर्म इज प्रोवाइडिंग सोल्यूशन फॉर these kind of objectives as well. फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ मैं आज के इस प्लेटफॉर्म के हिसाब के जरिए आप लोगों को ये बोलना चाहता हूँ कि एवरीबडी ऑफ अस, लाइक वी शुड ट्राई टू रेज अ कॉज ऑन दिस प्लेटफॉर्म फॉर समबडी वी नो, है ना, जिसको हम जानते हैं, जिसको सपोर्ट की जरूरत है. आइए उसका कॉज क्रिएट करिए, उसको सपोर्ट, उस खुद भी डोनेट करिए, अपने रिलेटिव्स और फ्रेंड्स के जरिए उसमें डोनेट कराइए, सोशल मीडिया कैंपेन्स करिए. We as a platform will also support you in getting the fund raised for that cause, inshallah. And with this, ये जो localization of zakat है, inshallah वो भी हम जो है कहीं ना कहीं provide कर पाएंगे. तो मैं जहां भी wherever I get an opportunity to talk about India Zakat, so I don't talk about the donations. Allah is managing the donation, mashallah. I am very sure on that. I only ask people, come and raise a cause, come and create a fundraiser, come and try to help somebody in your contact or in your circle. It may be your relative, it may be your school friend, college friend, it may be somebody from your neighborhood, it may be somebody from your own mosque. So raise a cause for them, help them, and see the impact and see their transformation in their lives, inshallah. So ये हमारा एक फ्यूचर बड़ा प्लान रहेगा कि हम लोग इस तरह से जो है ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों के कॉजेज इस पर क्रिएट करा सके. एक जो आखिरी बात है, में हर दिन ये कॉन्फ्रेंस चलती रहेगी और हम जो है बहुत सारी बातें आपको बताते रहेंगे, लेकिन बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट फैक्टर जो है वो ये है onboarding of the organizations. So since the day one when we started, alhamdulillah, not only AMP but so many other organizations have also supported this initiative. So now we have made a concrete attempt, you can say that, or a pre-planned attempt with which we are trying to connect organizations from all across India to come on this platform and again raise a cause. If, say for example, 300 organizations from 300 districts of India start helping one family in a month through this platform, it will be huge, inshallah, and the results will be exponential over the period of time. So this is our new resolution, inshallah. We'll try to bring more organizations who are there, especially those who are there on the ground, those who are already working. So we will help them with the funds, inshallah, through this platform. And we will not only help them with the funds, but we will train them so that आगे के लिए और strategic projects के लिए और strategic activities के लिए वो लोग जो है ना आगे बढ़ सकें और अपने तौर पर वो लोग बहुत सारा काम कर सकें, इंशाल्लाह. तो इस तरीके से कुछ हमने प्लान किया है. और जो the causes, जैसे मैंने बताया कि our causes were more focused on education. Inshallah, आने वाले दिनों में we will try to focus more on livelihood as well, so that we can help somebody to come out of poverty, to become self-reliant and self-sufficient, inshallah. So that is going to be the future for India Zakat, inshallah. I hope and I pray to Allah that Allah makes things easy for us. I pray to Allah that Allah accept all these efforts which we are providing. खास तौर पर मैं अभी मुझे एक बात याद है, सॉरी मैं खत्म कर रहा था लेकिन एक बात याद आ गई है, वो ये है कि ये पूरा प्लेटफॉर्म जो है वो वॉलंटियर ड्रिवन है. Can you imagine such a big platform which is running since last 2 years very successfully and raising crores and crores of funds, mashallah, without taking any commission, any charges, any fees from the fundraiser or the donors? I don't see any such kind of platform across India. This is the only platform, this is the first platform which has announced that we will not take any kind of fees from the beneficiary. And in spite of that, we are running it. So ये सब हो क्यों रहा है? Because of our wonderful volunteers, our wonderful team, and the huge network which EMP has behind it, mashallah. So every day, alhamdulillah, more than 50 people are working into different teams, from operations to from social media, from content writing to production to the cause verification, and there are so many, at least 20 different teams are working behind the scene for this platform, mashallah. तो अल्लाह से दुआ है कि अल्लाह हमारे इन तमाम वॉलंटियर्स को बहुत खुश रखे, अल्लाह उनकी तमाम जिंदगियों को में आसानियां पैदा करे, और अल्लाह इस काम की बरकत से जो है इन हमारे सारे वॉलंटियर्स को खास तौर पर, और हमारे डोनर्स को जिन्होंने इस पे डोनेट किया है। अल्लाह उनको इन तमाम कामों को आसान करे, उनकी जिंदगियों में आसानियां पैदा करे, और अल्लाह जो है ना इस मिशन को बहुत बहुत कामयाब बनाए। शुक्रिया, थैंक यू, जज़ाकल्लाह।
Thank you, Amir Bhai. That was certainly a visionary statement as to where we want to be. And let's take the message of India Zakat to the remotest corners and to all the people who need help the most. We will now begin the keynote address, Understanding Zakat from the Quran and Sunnah. I would like to call upon Mohammed Zahid Mateen, who is the head of special projects at globalsadqa.com. He's joining us from Malaysia. Mohammed Zahid Mateen is the head of special projects at globalsadqa.com. He is a certified project management professional, a certified blockchain associate, certified in zakat management, and certified in waqf management. He holds a master's in information technology with a focus on IT project management. His current areas of research are blockchain and NFTs for implementation in the charity sector. Welcome aboard, sir. Our second guest and keynote speaker today is Sohail Hanif. He is the CEO at National Zakat Foundation of UK. Dr. Sohail became National Zakat Foundation's chief executive in November 2021. Prior to this, he held the position of business accounts manager and lecturer at Cambridge Muslim College. From 2015 to 2017, he was NZF's head of research and development, and has also held the position of head of sciences at Qasid Arabic Institute in Amman. He brings to this role expertise in Islamic law, having studied extensively with traditional scholars, and holds a PhD from Oxford University. Welcome aboard, sir. Over to you to address this August gathering today on understanding zakat from the light of Quran and Sunnah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salam ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Firstly, I would like to thank Brother Amir and AMP, IndiaZakatcom and Ummah1.com for having me and organizing this much needed and important series of talks. I'm actually currently based in Malaysia, and it's a rainy Malaysia right now. So personally, I'm working for globalsadqa.com, which is a global platform based in Malaysia for effective charity and Islamic social finance focused on transparency, accountability, and impact. We facilitate donations in multiple international currencies, cryptocurrencies, and even digital gold. And as Brother Amir had just mentioned, that their aim is to turn zakat takers into zakat givers. So alhamdulillah, it's good to hear and see that we share the same mission and vision, because even at Global Sadaqah, our aim is to turn beneficiaries into benefactors of tomorrow. We've had the pleasure of working with AMP for multiple zakat projects and many more, inshallah, coming up in the pipeline for Ramadan. So let's get started. The best way, as our teachers mentioned, to learn about a concept is to look at its very definition. So linguistically, the root word zakat that we read, it implies purification, it implies blessings, it implies growth. And from the technical perspective, the Sharia perspective, we find that zakat is defined as an obligatory action of giving a specific portion of one's wealth to eligible recipients every lunar year, which we call the Hijri year. Zakat is the third of the 5 pillars of Islam, and it's an obligatory action upon Muslims. Allah tells us about zakat in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 110. To establish prayer, and give zakat. And whatever good you put forward for yourselves, you will find it with Allah. So before we move forward, I would like to touch on another point which I feel is very important. Another term that we commonly hear when it comes to charity is sadaqah. So what's the difference between sadaqah and zakat, or are they the same thing? So sometimes we see that in the Quran, sadaqah is used to refer to zakat as well. And the word zakat is mentioned approximately 30 times in the Quran, with 27 of them being associated with prayers or salah in the same ayah. So out of the 30 times that the word zakat is mentioned in the Quran, 8 of them are Makkan ayat, and the other are Madani ayat. So this clearly signifies that zakat is only second to salah in terms of importance for a Muslim. I mean, this is a very important point to highlight, because a lot of the times we see that when we miss a salah, people will reprimand us, advise us like, well, why aren't you praying? Why aren't you making up your salah? But unfortunately, when it comes to zakat, we find a lot of people in our communities who are very, very lax. And sometimes they don't give zakat for years. So we'll discuss that inshallah down the line. On the other hand, the word sadaqah is derived from the word sadaq, which means truth. The word sadaqah and its derivative, you have sadaqat, occurs 13 times in the Quran. And sadaqah is more of a general definition as compared to zakat, whereas zakat itself is a very restrictive term in nature. So to summarize and to make it easy, we can say that essentially all zakat qualifies as sadaqah, but not all sadaqah is necessarily zakat. So this is the reason why it's important that we learn about our religion, about sadaqah, all of this from qualified teachers who can help us in differentiating things according to the Sunnah and what Allah is actually referring to in the Quran. Right. A very important point of differentiation also, one of the scholars, Sheikh Abdullah Shinkiti, he said that the best charity is hidden and the best zakat is that which is displayed. Why is this? We have the famous hadith of Prophet ﷺ where he said, you give charity in such a manner that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand has given, correct? So why did Sheikh make this statement? This is because the normal charity, sadaqah, it has no limit. We can give as much ever amount as we want. And it is something that is between the person and Allah. On the other hand, zakat is fixed and it has something to do with establishing a pillar of Islam. Seeing zakat being carried out in public is important and a form of encouragement for other people to follow suit. And it also helps remove any envy or suspicion from the poor that are there in the community. Now, one final point over here that we need to also understand and remember is that zakat should not be viewed as some form of tax or a fine or a penalty. This is a misunderstanding that many of us have. In reality, zakat does not reduce from our wealth. Allah tells us, rather it's a promise that our wealth will be blessed and purified and multiplied by Allah when we give zakat. So moving forward, we also touch on the timeline and the history of zakat, of how it came into our ummah. So zakat was legislated in the second Hijri, which is approximately 18 months after the Prophet ﷺ, he arrived in Medina. Before that, while he was in Makkah, we see that charity was something recommended. There was no obligation of zakat or charity at that time. We find details of this in Surah Al-Ma'arij in ayat 24 and 25. After the Hijrah, we see that Allah revealed to the Prophet ﷺ in Surah Tawbah, ayah number 103 as well, take from their wealth a charity by which you purify them and you cause them increase and invoke upon them. Indeed, your invocations are a reassurance for them. So the act of giving zakat that we are doing today, it's not something new. It's something just like salah. It was obligated and legislated for all the nations that were there before us, of all the different prophets. So we see this clearly highlighted from the time of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam onwards. we see Allah mentioning in Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayah 83, how zakat was legislated upon Banu Israel, yani the children of Israel. We see Allah telling us in Surah Maryam, Ayah 54 and 55, how zakat was legislated upon Prophet Ismail alayhi salam. We see Allah telling us in Surah Maryam, Ayah 30 and 31, how zakat was legislated upon Prophet Isa alayhi salam. And the list goes on and on. This just goes to show again the importance of zakat in Islam. So much so that just like Salah, it had been a practice of all the ummahs and the prophets that came before us. Even in the seerah of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we see the famous hadith of Mu'adh ibn Jabal, where he was sent to Yemen. So Mu'adh ibn Jabal was an Ansari companion of the Prophet, and he was sent as an ambassador. I mean, we call it ambassador in today's terminology. He was sent as an ambassador to the people of Yemen to invite them to Islam. So here we see what the Prophet ﷺ asked him to do. He said, call them to bear witness that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah, and that I am the messenger of Allah. So this is affirming the Tawheed of Allah. Then he goes on and he says, if they obey that, then tell them that Allah has enjoined upon them 5 prayers every day and night. And then the third point he tells them, if they obey that, then tell them that Allah has enjoined upon them zakat from their wealth, pay attention, to be taken from the rich and given to their poor. So this also teaches us that it is recommended to distribute zakat to the people of the area where the zakat is being taken from or where it's being collected from. But now that we live in a global village, as people call it, many of the mashayikh and the scholars, they have come forward and they have said that it is also permissible to transfer zakat to other areas as well, to meet dire needs or to satisfy some other immediate interest. And this could also be because that the ones who are outside that specific area, they need it more, or they might perish, or they might have some severe emergencies that the ones in the immediate area don't have. So we find many other narrations also later on, where the zakat collection and administration became so well established under Mu'adh ibn Jabal that he started to actually send the surplus zakat back to Medina. Why? Because he couldn't find enough zakat eligible people in Yemen. So he was the one who had actually lived up to that mission and vision of converting zakat givers, zakat takers into zakat givers, subhanAllah. And especially, I mean, it's something to ponder upon that this is in Yemen. And if we look at Yemen today, it's one of the worst humanitarian crises that we are seeing in human history. May Allah protect and safeguard all of us. All right, inshallah. So moving forward, we get a bit more technical and we are looking at who is eligible to pay zakat. So a person who's supposed to pay zakat has to meet certain criteria. Some of them is that he should be a Muslim. He should be someone of sane mind. He should be someone who is free, yani he's not enslaved. He should be someone who has complete control of their wealth. Now, the last two are important and we're going to be touching upon it now, which are that the person has reached the minimum threshold of zakat, which is known as nisab. And a full lunar year has passed over this zakatable wealth. We also find mention, okay, now we know I'm eligible to pay zakat. What should I pay zakat on? So we find that the scholars, they have given us lists and explained what are the different assets that we pay zakat on. Some of them include cash and our liquid investments, gold and silver, our properties and similar fixed assets. You have your shares and equity investments, your business assets, and you have debts and so many other things. All of this is derived from multiple ayat from the Quran and the Sunnah, like Surah Al-Baqarah, ayat 267. Then we have Surah Tawbah, ayat 34. Then we have Surah Al-An'am, ayat 141, and so on and so forth. Then you have essentials that we need to live and survive, like our houses, our means of transport, like our car, our food, our clothes. So such things that are essential, they do not fall under the obligation of zakat. So going back, what we mentioned, what is nisab in the first place and how is it calculated? Now, this is very important. So nisab is considered as a certain financial threshold. It is described as the minimum amount of wealth that a Muslim must own before zakat becomes obligatory upon them. Very simple concept, inshallah, and I hope we can all remember this. So this nisab value, it is pegged to the value of gold, and the nisab value changes every year. And this value we need to find out by checking with our local Islamic councils or our associations, organizations that are there on the ground who can tell us what the current price is. And this is based on the average value of the price of 85 grams of gold in the past year. So Muslims whose wealth or overall net assets, you could call it, have reached this threshold are obliged to pay zakat, which is 2.5% of the total value of wealth, which has been in their possession for more than one lunar calendar. Why 2.5%? Well, why can't it be 5%? Why can't it be 10%? Wouldn't that be more helpful to the people, right? First thing we need to understand as Muslims is we submit to Allah. Whatever Allah has commanded us and has legislated through the Sunnah of His Prophet ﷺ, we completely submit to it. So this threshold, it was stipulated by the Messenger of Allah ﷺ himself, and the calculation is based on multiple hadiths, which in summary bring it down to 20 mithqal of gold, which is equivalent to approximately 85 to 87 grams of gold today, or 200 dirhams of silver, which is equivalent to 595 grams of silver. So we have the hadith mentioned in the Sunan of Imam Abi Dawud, where Ali radiallahu anh, he narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, when you possess 200 dirhams at the end of the year, if you still have them, 5 dirhams are levied on them as zakat. So now we are learning the whole zakat procedure from the Prophet ﷺ himself. There is nothing upon the person to be paid in gold until it reaches 20 dinars. When you possess 20 dinars at the end of the year, then there is half a dinar levied on it as zakat. Any additional amount will be calculated in the same manner, and no zakat is to be paid on monetary holdings until they have been owned for 1 year. This one hadith has summarized the entirety of what we need to know about zakat. Subhanallah. The Mashaykh, they say that the Prophet ﷺ, he was blessed with a gift of Jawami al-Kalim. He was able to summarize and give comprehensive speech, but that comprehensive speech, if we sit to explain and give a summary of it, forget summary of it, if we sit to explain it, we can fill libraries and libraries, and we still wouldn't be able to do justice to the beautiful words of our beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right. So we mentioned two thresholds. One was 85 grams of gold and the other was 595 grams of silver. Now, when we are calculating our zakat, the current day equivalent price needs to be checked. Here we have a bit slight difference of opinion. I'm not going to go into detail of that, but just as a point of benefit, overall, we see that the price calculation is based on gold. But that being said, we have Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, as well as the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, that we calculate our zakat according to the lesser of the two thresholds. Why? Because that is more beneficial to the poor, and that is the essence of zakat, to elevate and empower the poor. So if we use silver as our threshold of calculating our zakat, we are actually going to reach the nisab value even faster. And this will help us to implement a pillar of Islam for ourselves and for the community, as well as aiding the poor faster. All right, so alhamdulillah, we've covered what nisab means. And now we move on to what is hawl, which was the last point that was mentioned in the hadith. Hawl is that one period of one lunar year. Lunar year is the key term here, that must pass over the certain amount of wealth, which we discussed is the nisab, and only then does zakat become due upon it. Ibn Umar narrates whoever earns any money, he is not liable to pay zakat until the period of 1 year has passed upon it. This was collected by Imam at-Tirmidhi. So how do we understand this? A person starts calculating their zakat from the time their wealth hits the nisab. You note down this date, the Hijri date, right, on a piece of paper, and make sure it's safe. On the same date, the following year, the zakat has become due if you have maintained the nisab. If during the course of the year, the overall wealth falls below the nisab, then your zakat counter is reset. Everything goes back to zero. You start calculating fresh again only when you hit the nisab value again, which is 85 grams of gold that we discussed previously. Now, make sure that this date is selected and recorded, because it's very, very important for us to know. And it's an amana upon us and our shoulders that we make sure that our zakat is given. So this passage of 1 year that is happening on that wealth is known as hawl. And zakat needs to be paid immediately as the hawl is completed. We shouldn't delay it forward. Why? Because it's an amana on our shoulders. And think of it like we are not doing the poor any favor. Rather, this money, it's actually theirs, but Allah has kept it in our safekeeping till the time has come to give it to them. So the easiest manner to pay zakat is to basically just sum up all the zakatable assets that we have on this day when our hawl is complete, and we pay the zakat on it. Simple. Just to give you perspective, right? Think of it like this. For us, our 2.5%, in reality, this is somebody's 100%. This is all that they might have for themselves and their families. So our 2.5% could be someone's 100%. So moving forward, who does this 2.5% go to? Allah tells us in the Quran in Surah Tawbah, Ayah 60, that indeed charitable offerings are only given to the poor and the indigent, basically the fuqara and the masakin, and those who work on administering it, the amal zakat, and those whose hearts are to be reconciled, and those in bondage or slavery, and those who are in debt, and for those in the cause of Allah, fi sabilillah, and to the wayfarer, which is the Ibn Sabil. And this is an obligation from Allah, and Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. So from this we learn that Allah has specified. This is very important, because sometimes we see that people come in and they try to invent categories under these. And if Allah wanted to open doors, He would have made it very clear. But Allah restricted that zakat be given to other than these 8 categories. So it's very, very important that we know what these 8 categories are. So what are the 8? The poor, the needy, the collectors of zakat, and they can take a percentage for the work that they're doing in facilitating it. Softening the hearts of those who we think could come into Islam, or if they were to be paid that amount of money, they wouldn't harm Islam. Rather not harm Islam, harm the Muslims. Then we have the category of slaves, and then we have those who are in debt. And this is also something very, very important in our communities today, that people have taken loans from banks and loans from different people, and they are now in debt. And not just in debt, they have to pay interest. They have to pay riba on top of being in debt, which is as bad as it can get for a person. So this is where we can come in and with our zakat help these people, firstly to remove them from the trap of debt, and also at the same time make sure that there is no payment of riba happening in our communities. Then the 7th one is fi sabilillah, in the path of Allah. And this is a very debated category of what it is. And inshallah, I think we have our second speaker, Ustad. I'm not going to call him doctor, I'm going to call him Ustad, looking at mashallah the amount of classes and the knowledge he has. I'll leave it up to him to go into details with regards to that. And the last category is the stranded traveler, Ibn Sabil. So it is permissible to give the entire amount of zakat that we have to either all of them, all these 8 categories, or even just to one category. There's no hard and fast rule that it has to be given to only one person or it has to be given to all 8. There is room for discussion, inshallah. We also see that, we've touched on this before, that it is recommended to distribute zakat to the people where the zakat is being taken from. And this was from the hadith of Mu'adh ibn Jabal, where the Prophet ﷺ told him, take from the rich and give to their poor. And we also mentioned that it is permissible to transfer the zakat to meet the dire needs or the legal interest in other areas. Now, there is a very important question that comes up also now, after we've discussed these 8 categories. Can zakat be given to non-Muslims? So there is scholarly consensus, as some of our teachers have mentioned, and as ijma, that zakat cannot be given to non-Muslims. And this is mentioned by imams like Ibn al-Munzir, Kasani, Ibn Qudama, Imam al-Bukhuti, and many others. Imam Ibn Qudama al-Hanbali, he further says in his Al-Mughni, the disbeliever should not be given anything of zakat unless he is one of those who are inclined to Islam. So this actually goes to show us that zakat is very, very specific. But does this mean that we should not help our neighbors, our community members? No, this is where our sadaqah, our charity comes in. We need to help all of them, make sure they see the good akhlaq and the good helping nature that Muslims have through our charity. Why do we have to necessarily squeeze it into our zakat, which already has 8 specific recipients or beneficiaries? Alhamdulillah, Allah has given us a certain amount of money. That is why we are paying zakat in the first place. So if that's the case, then we should try and help out all these poor beneficiaries who are non-Muslims through our sadaqah and not our zakat. The second question comes up now. Can we give zakat to our family members? The answer is yes and no. It depends on who the family members are. So when it comes to giving zakat to your family members, a basic rule is that zakat can be given horizontally, not vertically. What does this mean? So this means that a person cannot give zakat to their parents or grandparents or their children or their grandchildren. So the vertical part is removed. This is because these people are the ones you are obliged to take care of in the first place. They are your responsibility. So you cannot give zakat to them. But vertically, horizontally, we can give zakat. So we can give zakat to our brothers, our sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins. All of these people can be recipients of our zakat if they do fall under one of the 8 categories. Since they don't fall under the category of our dependents. So if a person is your dependent, we cannot give zakat on, we cannot give our zakat to them. So inshallah, just before wrapping up, I wanted to touch on a few wisdoms of zakat that we have. We see that one of the wisdoms that some of the mashayikh mention is that zakat was legislated by Allah to remove greed from our hearts, because zakat purifies our money and it cleans it for us. This is, we know, Allah has told us this. And wealth with no zakat paid on it is like impurity in the eyes of Allah. So anyone from our community or our families who doesn't pay zakat on his wealth, then it's as good as he's feeding impurities or filth to his family. Subhanallah. That just goes to show how severe the matter of not paying our zakat is. And secondly, we also see that zakat is one of the greatest signs of iman or faith. Why? Because whenever we give money to anyone in our day-to-day dealings, we expect to get something in return, right? I mean, we are not just going around giving random money to random people on the road. Whenever we give money, we want some services, we want some products, or we want some form of benefit. But here in zakat, when we are giving money for the sake of Allah, you don't see any immediate physical returns. But at the end of the day, we absolutely believe that Allah will repay us and multiply the rewards for us from His bounty, even though we can't see it today. And furthermore, we also see that zakat is a means of breaking this dependency cycle of charity that people sometimes they become dependent on. So I mean, I'm sure all our esteemed organizations who are here, they might have seen it at some point, that if you're giving charity to a person, they stop working at times. They're like, okay, at the end of the month, these guys are going to come and they're going to give me money anyways. So why should I work? So this becomes also a big issue. So zakat comes in and it breaks this dependency cycle. It makes the people have that time factor that they need to work, and only when they can't find work and they fall into one of the 8 categories do we give them zakat. It's not like a monthly salary that they keep getting. Zakat is meant to empower our community. So we don't have people who are just, not sufficient. Yeah, they become self-sufficient. Sorry. So when giving zakat, it is like we are giving our love and care and support to a larger family around us. Just like when we spend on our own families using our own money, Allah tells it's a form of charity. A husband feeding the wife or feeding the children, it's considered as charity. So imagine the reward of giving zakat to our larger family, the larger ummah. And it helps strengthen and maintain the bonds of kinship and friendship amongst our societies. And especially in the times that we are living in, we really need to have strong bonds of friendship. So we also, last point here that I'll be touching on today, inshallah, is the issue of not paying our zakat. We have studies from IRTI under IDB and the World Bank, etc. They estimate that the potential global zakat collection is somewhere in the range of 500 to 600 billion US dollars. I mean, that number has so many zeros, I'll have to sit for a few seconds to count them. But today, this study was done somewhere in the late 2017, 2018. And I was speaking to a few of the researchers, and they were mentioning that these numbers today are expected to be between 500 billion and $1 trillion. I mean, at max, and this is at best, only 2 to 3% of potential zakat is actually being collected. And we can only imagine what the condition would be if just the Muslims, we're not even talking about the rest of the world, if just the Muslims today, if we actually paid our zakat, how many issues in our communities we can solve. And this is not some fairy tale or utopian dream that giving zakat and making sure our awqaf and the rest, they're functioning well, will remove or reduce poverty to a large extent. It's not something part of a fairy tale. We've seen this happen, as we mentioned, we have narrations during the time of Mu'adh ibn Jabal, where he didn't find people to give zakat to. We find this also happening again during the caliphate of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, where there weren't people to be found to give zakat to. This means that these people have met a certain good standing, and they're no longer deemed to be poor and needy. And they're not fuqara and masakin. That's how much impact zakat can have in our societies if we actually implement them. So the blueprint is ready for us. Zakat has so much potential that is just waiting to be tapped. Allah has given us the blueprint to our solutions, to our needs. It is now upon us to properly implement it. And the first step all of us should be taking is to educate ourselves, as well as not just ourselves, but also our families and our communities through our masajid or our Islamic centers on the importance of these issues and how do we give our zakat. We have like some hadiths from the Prophet ﷺ. We'll read them inshallah. They're scary. Like when I mean scary, it's really scary if we really sit and understand the reality of not paying zakat. The Prophet ﷺ said, he who is given wealth by Allah, but he does not pay its zakat, that wealth is made for him on the day of judgment into a form of a huge bald serpent with 2 horns, encircling that person and squeezing him all day and holding him by the lips and saying, I am your wealth, your treasure that you hoarded. Subhanallah. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he quoted the ayah from Surah Al-Imran, let not those who withhold the gift that Allah has given them from his grace think that it is good for them. No, it will be worse for them. Soon, the things that they withhold will be tied to their necks as a collar on the day of judgment. The Prophet ﷺ also told us, zakat is never intermingled or mixed with any amount of wealth without destroying and rotting it. And this is something we need to really ponder upon. Just one line of what not paying zakat can do for us. Okay, inshallah. So just to wrap up, inshallah, if a person has been neglectful and has not paid their zakat for many years, then he is obligated to seek forgiveness from Allah and to cover up the zakat for all the due from the pending years. So he approximates the zakat that was due and he pays accordingly. And this is a very serious manner where ignorance cannot be taken as an excuse, as it's one of the 5 pillars of Islam. And here a person is violating not just the right of Allah, but also the right of his brother who the zakat was due for. Okay. Jazakumullah khair. And we wrap up the session with one last hadith, which is the beautiful words of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said, if one gives in charity that is equal to 1 date from honestly earned money, and Allah accepts only honestly earned money. So Allah takes this charity in his right hand and he enlarges or multiplies its reward for the person as any one of you brings up a baby horse. So much so that it becomes as big as a mountain on the day of judgment. If this is the case with our charity, then we can only imagine what would be the case and the reward that Allah has prepared for all of us who pay our zakat. With that, I would like to conclude my session. Jazakumullah khair, everyone. Hope it was beneficial. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you. Those were really enlightening words. I'll pass on the baton to our next presenter. Over to you, sir.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. A warm welcome of peace to all of you. I'm speaking to you right now from London. I was about to say India, but it's a great honor for me to be speaking with you all. I'm very grateful to the organizers for the invitation, the MP, the India Zakat, Ummah One. Very grateful for Mohammed and Mateen as well for his presentation. A little bit about myself. I come from a background actually in Islamic law. I've been a lecturer and a researcher, specifically in Hanafi law, certainly for the last 10 years, and a little bit more as well in terms of the studying. And before that, I did a degree in engineering. And recently, I've made this sort of jump into the world of managing the National Zakat Foundation. It's a sort of a jump in terms of it's a movement from teaching in the classroom to managing this charity. But in terms of intellectually, it wasn't really a jump for me at all. It was just following a particular journey that I've been on, which is a journey to really try and understand, you could say in short, what the Sharia is all about. What is this sacred law that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to us through and embodied by his Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And so what I'd like to share with you today, I'll do my best not to overlap with anything we've just heard from Mohammed, Zahid, Mateen, except maybe a little bit of overlap. Just some reflections on, now, again, I was given the same topic as well, understanding zakat from the Quran and Sunnah. And there's really quite a lot that the Quran and Sunnah have to say about zakat. And so what I'd like to focus on are just some general themes I'd like to leave you with, specifically as we think about what we are meant to be achieving through zakat and what we can do together. Before I joined this call, I was speaking to one of our team and I said, I'm very excited to speak to this India present group and to follow their work. And I said, the reason why, I said, they're a minority community like us. And we don't always realize that when we're living in England. Obviously, Islam has been in India for an extremely long time. but politically, socially, Muslims in India, are a minority community. There's various forms of political challenges, social challenges. And although we in Britain are much younger, there's a lot of similarity as well, in the sense that we are a minority, and we're trying to understand how best to find our footing in society, how best to organize ourselves, how best to plant roots through which we can grow and find a strong base for ourselves and for those who will come after us, inshallah ta'ala, to carry this legacy and these teachings of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And so for us, zakat is not, the way that I think of it and the way that we talk about it at National Zakat Foundation. We're not simply facilitating a duty for individuals, but we see ourselves as planting a blueprint of how Islamic civilization can rise. And we see zakat as an essential ingredient within this. And I want to just hint at aspects of what I mean within this presentation. I don't have very beautiful slides, but I do have some slides. So I'm not sure if I can ask the organizers if I'm able to share my screen, if that's possible. And if not, then I can also keep speaking as well.
I'll let you share your slides.
Okay. Because it says here I can't share while someone else is sharing. So I think you'll have to
I'll stop sharing.
unshare. Okay, thank you very much. Again, they're not very pretty slides at all, but just to have something there. Okay, so this is talking about zakat in the Holy Quran. And I might hint a little bit about what we do at National Zakat Foundation as well. But what I want to talk about zakat and sadaqah, I won't talk too much because this actually overlaps nicely with the presentation we've just heard. Then I've kind of brought Mecca and Medina into this. I've called it charity in Mecca and zakat in Medina. And then the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to highlight two things, which is that the notion of charity, i.e. giving to those in need, is probably one of the most central themes within the Quran right from the beginning, when there was no system of zakat, when there were no 5 prayers, when there was no fasting in Ramadan, when there was none of these things we'd recognize as the fundamental acts of Islam, charity was there. And it was there in a very, very big way. And so I just want to give a sense of that backdrop before we come to zakat. Now, zakat comes in Medina, and I want to emphasize the Medina-ness of zakat, so you can really start thinking about what zakat is doing as an institution. And then after that, I just want to zoom back, like I said, just to think about where we are now and why it is that we need to bring Medina to where we are, and why I think that zakat is a system that I feel we need to think about in a systems way. What is the system that we have to come together to create? So that's just the overview of the themes I'd like to cover. Zakat and sadaqah, I've got nothing really to add from the presentation we just heard. Zakat returns back to purification and growth. And the idea of purification, again, just like we heard, is that over the passage of time, not all of the money belongs to us anymore. Some of it belongs to the poor. If we don't give it to the poor, then we are consuming somebody else's money. And so this is the idea that the wealth becomes filthy, and we are wearing filthy, we are eating filthy, we are feeding our children filthy. This is the idea that you are consuming what's not yours, and therefore whatever comes of you is impure. And as the hadith says, "Inna Allah ta'ala tayyibun la yaqbalu illa tayyiba." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pure, and He only accepts what's pure. It's good to stress this to people, because it's the very simple fact that if you want your children to grow up in a wholesome way, then feed them what's pure. If you want to feed them what's pure, make sure you pay your zakat. So that's just a very simple sort of thread that I think we need to spread to people, especially from the presentation we just heard, where we saw that a very small percentage of zakat is being paid. And I think a part of the reason is people need to have a conception of what is this all about. And I think we need to make the case to them of the importance of zakat. Zakat is a notion of growth, and the growth like you see in the hadith here, that money never decreases from being spent for the sake of Allah, it only grows. And so the growth is this protection, blessing that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm going to focus on social growth, which is, like I said, the one theme I want to stress as we think about a systems view of zakat, which is really the subtitle really to what I want to share, towards a systems view of zakat. Sadaqah, we've heard, so sadaqah is interchangeably used in the Quran and Sunnah for zakat, although we, again, ordinarily separate the two, between the sadaqah as the voluntary and zakat as the obligatory. As we've heard again, sadaqah returns back to genuineness and truth. As the hadith says, sadaqah is a proof, i.e. that you really are a believer. And we'll see this contrast between belief and unbelief through sadaqah. Now, what I want to say about charity in Mecca, just to say that as soon as Islam came into the world, as soon as the Quran came from heaven, it really came, the very early revelations, they really came very early on with two very clear revolutionary notions, two very clear challenges to society. One is the challenge of belief, and one is a challenge of social responsibility. The challenge of belief, it was a clear challenge that you can't just believe in something because others have. You can't just follow something because your parents have. You can't look at a world and not see God's hand in it. And you have to understand that the source of everything, the origin of everything, is the one almighty being, which is God, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So an argument and a challenge to purity in the belief in the oneness of God. But there's another challenge, another way the Quran challenged society fundamentally, which was the duty to care for the needy. The idea that the downtrodden, the people whom others give no importance to, the miskeen, the yatim, the ibn sabil, which is the refugee, if you don't look after them, you're basically going to go to hell. And you're going to, I'll show you a couple of verses like that. So right from the beginning, it's that there's only one God, and you must care for those whom nobody else cares for. Otherwise, God has nothing to do with you. So if you look at some of these verses, just before we look at some of them, I just want to also stress this idea from the Sunnah that there's this pairing. Remember I said there's two clear challenges. So the hadiths pair them. So we have a hadith here that poverty is like disbelief. The idea is, how does faith arise for people? It's when they're comfortable and they're protected. That's why family life is so central in religion in general, because when children have safe homes and two parents and they're protected, that's a comfortable setting within which they can start to think about the higher meanings of religion. And if a family is broken and society is broken, if people are struggling just to get by, that's when it becomes harder for them to connect to what's higher. And that's where people get driven by desperation, either to do what's wrong or to believe that there is no God to look after them. And so that's why in the hadith, in the daily du'as of the Sunnah, is Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-kufri wal-faqr. Oh Allah, I seek your protection from kufr and faqr, from unbelief and from poverty. So there is this pairing that if you want people to believe in God, part of it is catching them. Don't let them fall into desperation, because when they fall into desperation, you have somehow left them now to be cut off. And we'll see it's bringing people together is the original idea of zakat. So here are some of the very early sort of surahs. Here's one, Surah Al-Mudaththir. And it's talking about people going to hell. And people say, well, why are you in hell? Just two reasons. We didn't pray. We didn't feed the miskin. And so not feeding the miskin, that's where you're going to go. And this is before there's any zakat and any fasting and any of these injunctions. Or for example, in Surah Al-Haqqa, again, why are people going to hell? Really simple. He didn't believe in God, and he wouldn't encourage people to feed the needy. And so just to get a real sense that Islam from the beginning makes this the pillar of Islam. Feeding the needy is the pillar of Iman, right from the beginning. And that's why we find in this Meccan surah, Surah Al-Ma'arij, again, there's no zakat. the zakat that we know, 2.5%, and the other rules, but it's already implying that the believers have a fixed amount of their portion only to give to the needy. So this is the idea right in early Islam. All of your money is not yours. You must separate something and give it to those who need. And who are specified here? Those who ask and those who don't ask. You have to find them and you have to look after them. And that's why if you look in many of the short surahs that we all learn as children, you'll find this the importance of giving to the needy as a central theme. If you look at Surah Al-Kawthar, I did a very short Facebook Live actually yesterday on this surah on National Zakat Foundation Facebook. Very, very short surah. What's it all about? It's simply saying to the Prophet ﷺ, you have been blessed, and therefore pray to Allah and slaughter camels. And slaughtering of camel, what is that a reference to? It's giving the best of your wealth in charity. In this case, feeding the needy. And don't worry about the people who hate you. They're the ones who will not be remembered. So ignore the haters. Just give prayer and give the best of your charity. Surah Al-Ma'un, the whole surah is about what's the mark of unbelief? Being harsh to the orphan, not encouraging people to feed the needy, and not helping people with the little bits of help that you're able to help them. Surah Al-Asr, what's the surah all about? When the life comes to an end, everyone's going to be a loser in this transaction of life, except for those who believe and those who do good deeds, but those who come together for the truth and those who come together for sabr. What does it mean to come together for sabr? It's to help each other carry on and not give up. And that's what I just said, that's what the charity is about. Don't let people fall into desperation. Catch them. Make sure that they don't have a reason to give up, but you're their lifeline of hope if you want to be saved. Surah Al-Duha. What's the surah about? Allah's reminding the Prophet ﷺ, I'm with you. I was there for you when you were an orphan. I was there for you when you were in need. And therefore, be good to the orphan. And therefore, be good to the needy. Surah Al-Layl. It's a surah which highlights in its pinnacle the difference between those of the right and the wrong as those who give charity. And it ends with this beautiful description that the Mufassirun says is of Abdullah, it's for Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, is that the one who is saved from hell is وَيُجَنَّبُهَا الْأَتْقَى, the one who's most God-fearing is saved from hell. الَّذِي يُؤْتِي مَالَهُ يَتَزَكَّى, the one who spends of his money to purify himself. وَمَا لِأَحَدٍ عِنْدَهُ مِنْ نِعْمَةٍ تُجَزَى, and not because he wants anything in return. إِلَّا بِتِغَاءَ وَجْهِ رَبِّهِ الْأَعْلَى, except he only does this giving of his money because he seeks the highest face of his Lord. وَلَسَوْفَ يَرْضَى, and he will get it. He will be pleased. He will find Allah. So go through the Quran, surah after surah, surah after surah, surah after surah, just to stress, caring for the needy is the pillar of Iman, after the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the devotion to Him. But then you come to Medina. When you come to Medina, what's the difference between what I'm calling Mecca and Medina is in Medina now, the Prophet ﷺ is now laying the foundation for a civilization, an entire social political order that's founded on the pillars of Iman. And that's why the most essential conception of Islamic civilization is this hadith over here. That's where you get 5 pillars. And these 5 pillars, what I want to stress is they're not just pillars of your personal practice, that, oh, I should pray and I should fast and I should give zakat and that's the completion of my faith. These 5 pillars are the fundamental pillars of the whole social order. And that's why all of them are fundamentally social institutions. If we build them, the whole civilization grows. The civilization that went to Persia and Iraq and Iran and Egypt and Syria, that civilization, its roots for that growth are these 5. If you look at these 5 carefully, let's look at Salat. Salat, the 5 daily prayers, are the most powerful social institution in Islam because they lead to the building of the mosque. The mosque is the pillar of Islamic civilization. And the reason for this, and this is why the Prophet ﷺ, the first thing that he built in Medina was the mosque. And when I say building a mosque, I don't mean domes and minarets and mimbars. I mean simply a space of land dedicated to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. that no human being can claim to own, and therefore in which all people are equal. The mosque is the beginning of telling people you are an ummah in faith. It doesn't matter about your language, your color, your skin, your ethnicity. It doesn't matter if yesterday you were a non-Muslim and today you're a Muslim. It doesn't matter if your economic class is you're a king or you're a slave. It doesn't matter. In this space, you are united by something else. That other thing is your ummahness, that you are one in the believers in God. And that's why all of the great institutions of Islam started in the mosque. The armies used to gather in the mosque. The courthouse used to take place within the mosque. The madrasa, the universities started in the mosque. The zawiyas, khanqahs, where people used to have devotional practice, started in the mosque. The mosque is the seed of all of Islam's great social institutions, and it starts from the prayer. That's why in the great old cities of Islam, and I'm sure you'll find the same in your great old Indian cities, centers, the mosque, the grand mosque, is always next to the grand market. And if you look at us in a very new Muslim setting in England, you find that around the main mosque is where all the Muslim, you get the halal meat shops, and you get the Muslim bookstores, and the whole idea of an identity, even an economic identity, its seed always starts within the mosque, because the mosque is the first place where you realize I'm part of something bigger. And certainly for us as a minority setting, that's why, again, there's so many interesting Muslim projects, but in my belief, it's because in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, people made masajid, places to gather in prayer. And the rules of prayer, I have a blog post coming out on Thursday on the Islamic Law blog. It's just about the idea of prayer as social institution. The rules of prayer, Friday prayer, Eid prayer, group prayer, Janazah prayer. If you read a book of fiqh about prayer, all of it is the beginning of how you have an ummah through prayer. Zakat I'm going to come to in a second, but zakat, I want us to think of it like that. It's a system which lays the foundation of a believing community, an ummah in faith, to find itself as an ummah. Fasting in Ramadan is a very, very private activity. You know, it's inside your stomach. No one knows that you're fasting. However, fasting in Ramadan is a very powerful social institution as well, because people eat together in Ramadan more than they eat together outside of Ramadan. Families have meals together in Ramadan more than they have meals together outside of Ramadan. People gather in the masajid for extra prayers in Ramadan more than they do outside of Ramadan. And so Ramadan is a social act, social eating and social praying. It's an injection of energy in the whole community, not just within yourself. The pilgrimage to the house is a worldwide gathering of the worldwide ummah. The shahada in the beginning, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. What's the shahada? It's the key to this community. The shahada says, whoever says this word can enter our mosques and pray with us. Whoever says this word deserves zakat as a right if they're needy, and owes zakat as a duty if they're well-to-do. Whoever says this word breaks bread with us in Ramadan. Whoever says this word joins us in the house. So the idea is the shahada is the entryway into the community. It doesn't matter what you were believing yesterday, but if you say it today, we will ask you no other questions. You are part of this group. And what does the group enjoy? The community of the masajid, the social net of zakat, and these other blessings. And that's why when it comes to zakat, I want to think about its key constraints now within this system. As we saw in the last presentation, the classical schools of law, they all held these 2 points. Number one, zakat is only given to Muslims. That's a really important thing to understand. Zakat is not the charity in general that Islam emphasizes from beginning to end of Islam. Charity in general to all human beings and to the animals and to the nature is important in Islam. Zakat is not charity in general. Zakat is a specific institution. When zakat goes from Muslim to Muslim, it's building a tie. It's reminding each other that we are a family in faith, that your children, looking after them is my responsibility. You might not be my blood, but you're my brother in faith. And therefore we are tied. Zakat is building the tie of ummah. We must look after each other. We must find solidarity in each other. That's the first thing. The second thing, which is very fascinating, also came in the last presentation, is that all the schools of law say that zakat should be paid locally within the area where you live. They've only debated in the idea that is it obligatory to pay zakat where you live, or is it you could say a strong sunnah. So, for example, some of the schools say it's sinful to take the zakat out of where you are, and the most lenient school on this is our Hanafi school, which says it's makruh, which literally means it's very, very disliked to take the zakat away from where you are, unless it's to people in greater need or it's to a family member. But what we can get from this discussion is zakat as a system is meant to be localized. It's going outside of your locality is like an exception for a reason, but the system is here. And so why is zakat tied to a locality? Now, when it comes to locality, don't think of countries. Don't think of India as a country and England as a country and Saudi Arabia as a country. These countries are modern constructions. Second World War, 20th century, that's where this new idea of nation is from. In the classical fiqh, locality was locality. It means your city. Delhi is a city. London is a city. These are localities. So why is zakat being paid locally? It's meant to build ties between people in these cities or in these towns or in these villages. It's meant to build within these localities a sense of duty to each other, that in every locality, some of us need to have knowledge. Who are the people in need? How are they suffering? Why are they suffering? What can we do for them? It's meant to build this tie of belonging where you are, so that you are not alone. Remember I said that, like we saw in the last presentation, Salat and Zakat come side by side 28 times. They don't just come side by side because they're important. They become side by side because there are two sides of the same coin, which is the pillar of a Muslim civilization. The Salat brings the Ummah together in the mosque, and the Salat lets the Ummah know each other. You are the brothers. And Zakat now is telling the people of that Ummah, not only are you one Ummah, but you have a duty of care to each other now. It's not just a brotherhood of lip service, it's a brotherhood of a duty of care. Zakat is meant to be a system or a net which catches all of you and connects all of you. It gives all of you a sense of pride. I belong to a group that looks after itself. I am looked after. I look after others. And so we think of zakat as the pillar of belonging, so that people would want to join this group, because the Prophet ﷺ, the da'wah he left the world upon is his da'wah in Medina, and that's the da'wah of civilization. He planted the seeds of incredibly powerful and compelling institutions, so that over the passage of time, as this civilization spread, people chose to join this civilization because its institutions were compelling. Not everyone could read Arabic, not everybody memorized the Quran, but everybody found meaning, safety, comfort, belonging within this civilization. And so that's all I'm going to say, why Salat and Zakat are the absolute pillars of a civilizational view of Islam. Bunya al-Islamu ala khamsin. And that's what I think we have to all think about. That's the essential topic I wanted to raise. And that's what I want us to think about today. What is it that we are tasked to build? And what we are tasked to build is the pillar of a civilizational view. And I'll come back to this right at the end. And so just a few, again, the topic is within the Quran and Sunnah. So I'm just going to go through a few of the Quranic and Sunnah statements that speak about zakat, and primarily now with zakat in Medina, zakat as this institution. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud says, in a statement of his, radiallahu anhu, we were told to pray and give zakat. Who does not give zakat has no prayer, i.e. this intrinsic pairing of salat and zakat. Surah At-Tawbah, one of the last, surah that came towards the end of the Prophet's life, ﷺ, makes the zakat one of the key markers of this community. The believers, men and women, they protect each other, they command the good, they forbid the evil, they establish this translation, I don't know, maybe it's from Yusuf Ali. They establish the salat and they pay the zakat and they obey Allah and His Messenger. And these are the believers, and it's contrasted a few verses earlier by the hypocrites. The hypocrites, men and women, they're from each other, they enjoin what's wrong, they forbid what is right, and they hold back their hands. So this is the idea. Zakat is the marker between Iman and Nifaq. Within the Holy Quran, zakat is used in so many interesting places where it strikes you as it wouldn't, almost unexpected. Look at this now. The Quran says, woe unto the idolaters, the idol worshippers. Who are they? The ones who don't give zakat. Again, when you say pawdi, the Arabic is zakat. And they disbelieve in the hereafter. So what it's hinting at is how fundamental zakat is to Iman, that it's seen as a trait of the mushrikeen to not give zakat. Again, going back to right from the early revelation, that's what the Quran has been saying from the beginning. And then if you don't spend zakat happily, then this is the mark again of the hypocrites, because the way the Quran speaks of them is if they do spend in charity, it's with great dislike. And so what the Quran is saying is you have to spend the zakat with full peace of heart. Otherwise, there's a trace of hypocrisy in you if there's hesitation. The Quran ties zakat to winning onto the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My mercy embraces all things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. I will specifically ordain it, inscribe it for those who ward off evil. Sorry, this is the Arabic term would be easy to understand. For those who have taqwa, and for those who pay zakat and believe in our signs. So the only act of the Sharia is zakat in this verse as a means to draw the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How about the victory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the earth? Again, the Quran ties it to zakat. Allah will aid those who aid His cause. Those who are the ones whom Allah aids, those whom if we gave them power, they would use that power for salat and zakat, i.e. the civilization of Islam, founded on devotion to Allah and caring for the needy. And they established the Sharia on this land. Those are the worthy of victory from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So just a small hint of how central the theme of zakat is in the Quran, and how it's seen as a marker of some of the key promises within the Holy Quran. And the last thing I wanted to leave you all on, just 1 second. Okay, just want to make sure there's no message from the organizer. Just in the last second, again, I want us to think about a systems view. What is the essence of what's being conveyed? And what is it we have to think about now? Because ultimately we are discussing now. We're not discussing in some abstraction. We're discussing in a place and time. And so there are a few themes in the Sunnah I want us to think about. One of these themes is that we have to understand that zakat was political in the Sunnah. The idea is that zakat, if you read the classical fiqh, zakat is it's seen as a kind of taxation, and that's because politics in the Sharia is ultimately a form of worship. It's organizing society so that there is justice, equity, and remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what politics is. So politics is worship, and politics is a duty. And that's why zakat is tied to the political, because it ties worship to the duty of care and social organization. That's why in the time of the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr and Umar, all of the zakat was collected by an appointed collector. It wasn't like your personal activity. It was an enforced social activity. That's why Sayyidina Abu Bakr, the first Khalifa of the Prophet ﷺ, he considered it a duty of state to take zakat from people who refuse to pay it, because it's a right and it must be taken as a right. And that was the first sort of ijtihad, important ijtihad, if you like, that took place after the Prophet ﷺ in the Caliphate of Abu Bakr. This is emphasizing this political nature of the zakat as the Prophet ﷺ institutionalized it in the Sunnah. That's why if you look in the early Sunnahs, in the early reports, the zakat is not managed by personal choice, it's organized. So you have appointed collectors, it's their job to collect, as we saw in this last presentation. There was the amil, with different words, sometimes he's called the musaddiq, sometimes he's called the sa'i. He's appointed to go from house to house and settlement to settlement to record, document, collect, and distribute the zakat. There was the ashir, who was appointed, certainly at the time of Sayyidina Umar. He was like an import taxation. He would sit on the borders, and when people would bring wealth, i.e. traders, if they were Muslim, he would take zakat of that wealth. If they were not Muslim, he would take some sort of a rate of import taxation. We had, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the early caliphs, they were grazing fields, because zakat was often paid in animals. So a whole grazing field, and then a shepherd appointed to protect the animals, so that the animals taken in zakat would be looked after until a new home is found for them. All this has to be organized by the community. And that's why I said this is part of a political structure of financial management. There was a treasury, the Baytul Mal, which obviously is how the funds are pooled and then distributed. At the time of Sayyidina Uthman, there was an important distinction made between visible and invisible wealth. The idea was that your personal gold, silver, and trade stock, these are things people keep in their homes. And at the time of Sayyidina Uthman, the companions agreed, all the schools of law follow this, that state collectors shouldn't have the right to enter people's homes to count money, because that's an intrusion of privacy and dignity. And that's why from that time on, individuals counted their own zakat, if it's gold, silver, trade good, and then they had the choice to distribute it themselves or to give it to the state collector. And the state collector counted the zakat of animals and agriculture. That's how the division happened. But what I want to stress is, it's part of a whole order. It's not simply you and your personal duty. It's a system. This is my last slide. What I believe is the task of minorities is we are in a situation where we are weak, we are not politically protected, and we are trying to figure out what's the right way to coordinate our efforts. For the sake of, you can say, finding protection, strength, so faith can flourish. And what the 5 pillars are giving us are a roadmap to found our civilization upon. And so I believe it's our duty to create a zakat system. And what I call a system is the opposite of simply a service, not just helping those who wish to pay zakat, but the idea is really creating a system of local zakat where people feel protected, people feel caught, people feel that if they have a right, they will have an easy way to access that right. And people understand they have a duty of care to know what's going on. A system which catches you. Because I'm a Muslim, I'm part of this safety net. That's the idea. Because what this does, it leads to the izz of Islam. Because the idea of all of the Sharia is that a Muslim can hold their head up high and say, you know what? I'm proud to belong to this group. That's it. That's what I mean by civilization. Just like when you have a nice passport in a good country, we talk about these powerful passports, you can travel to all the countries you want. You get this idea that, oh, I belong to a great civilization. I'm really happy and proud. And that's what these pillars are meant to give you. I belong to a great group. I'm looked after. I feel safe. I feel proud. Pride, when I say proud, why is this important? It's because everyone has to want to be welcome. Everyone. Not everyone can read a book. Not everyone can read a fancy article. But everyone knows what it means to belong to something where you are looked after and you find meaning in that belonging. That's what the zakat system has to give us. And as we build this system, we have to organize ourselves. And this will force upon us, committees and structures and bringing the masajid together. Maybe they have different ideologies and groups. We have to find a way to come together to care for the needy. Zakat is going to help us organize. And that organization is the strength that comes in the ummah. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he said, the hand of Allah is over the group. And if somebody is by themselves, the devil is with that person. If 2 Muslims come together, the devil is further away. So all of the Sharia is showing us how we can come together, because it's when you come together that you are protected. And like I said, when people find comfort, that's when faith arises. That's when they have the peace of mind to devote themselves to worship and reflection. So our job is to give other people comfort so they can find God. And how do we do that? By coming together. The last thing I'll say, I finished my slides just in 1 minute, because I'm not going to be coming back again to talk about sorry, 1 second, to talk about National Zakat Foundation, but I just wanted to give you a sense of what we can do together with technology, with the various things we will be discussing here. So we at National Zakat Foundation, we serve nationwide within the UK. What I wanted to share with you was that, you know, this technology that we'll be discussing in this upcoming period. So we've developed a technology to track how zakat is being spent within the UK. And so the idea is that you can zoom into your area, your postcode, and we can let people know that, oh, in this area, we've received this much zakat and this much zakat went out. And so we can start building a map of where are the people in need, where are the people who are paying, and start connecting them. So what I want to get at is, again, this is still a product in its early stages, but I wanted to hint at was, you know, this presentation of the India Zakat Fund, it started with talking about technology, crowdfunding, connecting people. I've talked about physical spaces, because at the end of the day, people are real. They have to find a belonging where they are. And there's a way to use technology, use the things that, you know, we are creating, what you are creating in all of your projects. But the end result is you have to catch people. People have to feel connected. And it's the connecting people with people in a system which gives them meaning, which I think is the duty that lies before us, because that for me is the essence of zakat from the Sunnah. That's all I wanted to share. Thank you all very much for your time and for the opportunity. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Naveed. We have some questions in the Q&A section. So should we take, if the speakers are okay, Brother Sohail, Brother Zahid, would you want to take some questions if we have some time? Brother Naveed, are we okay with that?
Yeah, we have 8 more minutes on the clock, so we can take most of those questions.
Are you guys able to see the questions and you can take them one by one?
Yeah, I'm trying to see what might be more suitable for this panel. Sorry, maybe Mohammed Mateen can choose one. I'm just having a look at.
I mean, the first question is, in case we don't know when we have nisab value and when we forget it for years. I think we touched on this a bit, that the nisab value, you can either calculate yourself by looking at the value of the gold, 85 grams of gold. And if you've forgotten it, then you have to pay zakat on it as per the safest opinion that we have. Or if you're connected to the masjid, as Ustad mentioned, then pretty sure each masjid would be able to tell you what the nisab value is for that year. So yeah, it goes back to connecting ourselves to our masajid.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I don't have anything to add to that. I was just looking over the questions. I guess we'll just follow them in order. I can't find a preference really. We'll do it one by one then. We'll just take turns. So the next one is, what if someone hasn't paid zakat from the initial days? And so the idea is, if you think of any debt, let's say I borrow money from you and I say I'll pay it back to you next year. If I don't manage it to pay you back, I still owe you a debt. That hasn't cancelled my debt. So the idea is, a debt you owe to the needy, you always have to pay it. It doesn't ever cancel, time out, or anything like that. So the zakat, ever since one's adulthood, the Hanafi scholars say there's no zakat to the wealth of children. Some scholars differ with this. We can certainly say, since your adulthood, if you've been above the nisab, then there's a zakat that is owed. If you haven't done it, then obviously we have to. This is more about managing your first of all your finances and also your spiritual, emotional sort of well-being. Then what I'd advise is you pay your immediate zakat, learn about the rules, you know, get your footing in your practice of Islam and zakat and so on. But then when you're ready and you understand how zakat works and you started paying it, then just look back. Do your best to guess. You will not know it 100%. You'll go back year by year on your zakat date, see how much it looks like you owed. You can look, you know, at NZF in our website, nzf.org.uk. Sorry, but it might not apply to you because you're in India. So we have a historical nisab calculator that goes back 20 years. So you can see the price of gold, silver, and what the nisab was all the way back for 20 years if you have to back calculate. That might help you. Again, you'll have to see how that converts to where you live. But that's all I'll say. You want to backtrack to the best of your guess how much zakat you've owed. You might not be able to pay all of it because it might be a lot. Just make a little plan, bit by bit, as is easy for you given your other responsibilities. And the last thing that the fuqaha say is that you should leave it aside in your will so that your inheritors know that there's an amount of zakat that you're trying to pay. And then the inheritors can pay up to 1/3. You know, 1/3 of the will is for the wasiyah. So up to 1/3 of the inheritance can be paid towards zakat, but they need to know about it. So I'll say is make the calculation, make a plan. Don't put yourself in a stress that affects your other responsibilities that you have, but just make a plan to pay it and let your inheritors know, let it be recorded. And then that's how it should be done. That's the what the fiqh would say.
I think the third question is a bit too specific, so I'm thinking we should let that for another day or for some specific scholars on the ground to take it because it's very, very specific. The next question is about zakat to madrasas. I mean, this is a very widely debated topic of what fi sabilillah means in the path of Allah. Some scholars, including some of my own teachers, they are very, very restrictive when it comes to fi sabilillah. They say it should be only for fighting in the path of Allah. We have other mashayikh who have come out and say no, fi sabilillah would also include education and dawah and calling people to Islam. So if a madrasa is needed to empower Muslims intellectually also, so that would fall under that category. But always best to be on the safe side when it comes to zakat. Ustad, what would you have to say?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. It's absolutely correct. All I'll say is, yes, there's two angles how people allow zakat for the madrasa. One angle is what Mohammed said about the fi sabilillah, you know, a particular interpretation of they're doing God's work, let's support them. But even those who don't follow that interpretation, you know, a stricter Hanafi interpretation, which says everyone has to be poor Muslim to receive zakat. Then if you look at the history of the subcontinent, in the late 19th century, early 20th century, all of them started using zakat for the madrasa, but they used it in a very particular way. What they did was they all took it as a kind of scholarship for the poor student, but then they used it to fund the madrasa. And so it's the way that they structured it, that the money is for the poor student, but then they use it to offset the fees of the student. And now the student has paid the fees, they spend it on the madrasa. So all I will say is, almost all over the Muslim world, because what happened is that these, in the modern period, the madrasas lost their endowments because of the way that the politics went. And so they all, I think everywhere, Syria certainly and India certainly, they use zakat to fund the madrasa, but the trick is how they structured it. And so that's all I'll say. There's two different ways people do this. And if you know, again, I'm assuming, you know, the questioner is certainly in India. If you look at any of the Indian madaris, they all do it. And you can just ask them how they structure it. That's what the sensitive thing that Ustad Mateen is getting at. How you go about it, you have to think about. It's not straightforward, but many people do it. And it's worth investigating if this is what you're trying to do.
Okay, let's just take one more question because we'd like to be on time. And then Naveed Bhai, you can take over, yeah? After we get, the speakers can choose one more question and answer, inshallah.
I think we'll just do the next one, but maybe Ustad Mateen, you work in the NFTs and the gold and the.
I mean,
I think this is your expertise. The Ukraine crisis seems like a
tricky question. It's a tricky question. I don't think I can answer this question because it's talking about the volatility of gold, and I mean, we are quite clear on the 85 grams of gold. So if it's less, it's good. I mean, you reach the nisab faster. You have to give zakat to the people, but I don't think I'm going to be able to answer.
Yeah, I agree with the Ustad Mohammed Mateen on this, which is because ultimately, you have to remember that the zakat is due on the day that it's due, right? It's on one day you have to calculate, like he said in his presentation. So the problem here we have is you have to realize, again, part of the volatility isn't just the gold. It's the fact that our modern economy is volatile. We are working with currencies that are manipulated in particular ways by market forces. They're not real assets. So what I'm trying to get at is money is always going up and down. It's just the way that our markets work. And it's just sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. Sometimes you can buy more bread with your rupee, perhaps, and sometimes you can buy less bread with your rupee. What I'm trying to get at is there's a volatility in all of our assets because of the way that we're countering and measuring them. Yes, it's true the gold might have been affected in one moment, and other times other things will. So all I'm trying to get at is volatility is a constant. It's not just this one crisis. And at the end of the day, generally it all balances out. So what I'm trying to get at is the straightforward answer is you owe the zakat on what is due today, whatever it's due. If you're paying in actual gold, you just give that portion of the gold, right? It's the same whether you did it with Ukraine or without Ukraine. It's just a portion of your gold. The only thing which seems strange is when we pay in non-gold, but that's going to always be the case. It's just the nature of the way that our currencies work. So all I'll say is the simple answer is what I think Ustad Mateen is hinting at. You just pay the zakat of what is due today. You can't do more than that. But over the passage of the years, it all balances out because of things always go up and down based on how our markets work. So I'm going to just say that really. But I think it's the same answer as what I think Sheikh Mateen was saying as well.
Okay, I think unfortunately we'll have to take only these many questions. Inshallah, to all the other attendees who've asked the question, we'll try and answer them offline, or we'll try and answer them in the sessions that we have that are going to be followed tomorrow and until Saturday, inshallah. Brother Naveed, over to you for the closing.
Thanks, Zahid. I think on a lighter note, we should build a zakat volatility index, trying to capture all the assets and liabilities and movements. Probably a project of the future, given that there are people who have expertise in blockchain and NFTs and probably look at cryptocurrencies as well. Don't know if they are rightful or legal, but probably we'll delve into those some other day. I think we've had a great session. Thanks to Sohail and Zahid Bhai for the enlightening our audience. I could see most of our audience were glued. We didn't see anybody drop out of the 2-hour session. That only shows that we've been largely successful in driving the message of the conference. I'd like to call upon Khalandar Bhai, if you're there, to have a quick dua and close it for the day.